Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors suffer a 109-94 defeat to the Houston Rockets at Toyota Center on Wednesday night. Series now tied at 1 apiece heading back to the Bay, but I think I speak for the majority of Warrior fans when I say that I could care less about the final result of this game with all the focus and attention on Jimmy Butler's pelvic injury. Obviously a nasty fall there in the first quarter on a rebound where he was kind of undercut by Amen Thompson. You guys can make up your minds on what you thought of that collision and that fall and who was to blame, whatever else. From my perspective, who cares? Like, there's nothing we can do about it now. It is what it is. And fingers crossed, Jimmy, has his MRI tomorrow back in the Bay and everything's kind of fine and there's no fracture there. And we see a similar outcome to what we have seen over the second half of the season with Steph, who missed 2 games with a pelvic contusion, and Kuminga also missed the game, I think, on April 1 against the Grizzlies after a pelvic contusion the game before as well. So fingers crossed that it's nothing too serious for Jimmy. Steve Kerr said in the post game there that Jimmy said he'll be fine. Now, I'm not sure if that's him just believing in himself or if he's actually, well, I don't know. We'll wait and see, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jimmy, just claims that he's fine, even though he's not. We'll wait and see. Again, fingers crossed on the MRI tomorrow, but certainly that is the biggest outcome from this game. Everything else that happened beyond that was really, again, I couldn't care less. Would have it been nice to have stolen this game somehow? Absolutely. But I really had no expectation. Like, this is a team that is not good enough to withstand an injury to Steph Curry or Jimmy Butler. Anyone else, then maybe, I suppose Draymond's a stretch. Could they withstand Draymond? Perhaps not on the defensive end, but Steph and Jimmy in particular, like, you're just not good enough to withstand an injury to one of those two guys. So ultimately, once Jimmy went down, I was like, okay, like, this is going to be 1-1. And to be fair, like, the Warriors are still in a good spot. Like, you went into these 2 games in Houston and you wanted to win one of them. And Golden State did that in the opener with that 95-85 victory. They broke serve and now they have to go back home and try and hold serve. And obviously doing that is going to be difficult if Jimmy is out. Saw an update from a renowned doctor before on YouTube that basically said that it'd be unlikely that Jimmy will play in game 3, even if there's no fracture, just with the pelvic contusion, which I suppose would make some sense based on what we've seen with Steph and Kuminga recently over the second half of the season. Obviously, in a playoff environment, it's going to be a little different. Jimmy is probably going to be more willing to play through some pain in a playoff game rather than obviously a regular season game. We know that. My biggest issue with this moving forward is, okay, let's say, fingers crossed, it's not a fracture and that it's really a pain tolerance thing more than anything. My biggest issue is how Jimmy plays and how he obviously plays around the basket, plays through contact, all this kind of stuff. You know that Ime Udoka will be going to his players and saying, any chance, any opportunity we get with Jimmy Butler driving to the basket, any opportunity we have to knock him over and try and land him on his backside again, let's do it. And I'm not sure if that, like, I don't even know if I'd call that dirty. It sounds dirty in theory, yeah, but this is playoff basketball, kind of what it is. Like, if you put your hand up to play in a game, a professional sport at this level, then you are basically saying I'm 100% fit and healthy and I can withstand most of the legal stuff that comes my way. And there is some legality in good, hard fouls in playoff basketball. And I'm sure, like, Udoka's not going to go out of his way to necessarily tell them to do anything reckless or flagrant kind of thing. But he will say, like, if Jimmy's driving to the basket and you're going to foul him, make sure you foul him hard. And if he falls to the ground, then so be it, right? And if he falls on his pelvis, so be it. And that's going to be my concern from a Warrior fan perspective is, even if Jimmy does come back, even if he plays game 3 on Saturday back at Chase Center, what kind of lingering issue could this have on his play and potential, future issues here if he was to fall, in a similar manner again, and potentially aggravate it even more. So that's probably my biggest concern moving forward. I'll get to some of your comments here in a second. In terms of takeaways from the game itself, I don't know, not too much. Obviously, Kuminga saw 26 minutes off the bench once Butler was out. We knew that was going to happen. I was excited to see it. it wasn't great. Let's be honest. He had 11 points on 4 of 12 shooting. I'm not surprised with it. Like, it wasn't great, but I'm not sure what else you're supposed to expect when he hasn't played for 3 games and when you make such a big controversial move as Steve Kerr has done in DNPing him for 3 straight games. It's hard to get him re-engaged and straight back into the flow of things, and asking him to come out game 2 of a playoff series on the road. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that to be, it would have been great if JK could go off for 20 points and the Warriors somehow win this game. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that was probably pretty unrealistic. So I'm not surprised by the Kuminga stuff. I don't know. It was just one of those games. I haven't even mentioned Brandon Pajemski yet. Like, Pods was a non-factor, a complete non-factor in this game. Like, literally was a non-factor in this game because he had 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, did his best Kyle Kuzma impression in 14 minutes. And that was because a little bit of food poisoning came his way and he was questionable before the game. He did suit up and play, started, but was just clearly not himself. He had an IV drip at halftime, which meant he didn't start the third quarter. Then he came back and had another crack and just wasn't himself. So you're going to be without Jimmy Butler. You're going to be without Brandon Pajemski. I mean, what chance do the Warriors have in this game? So really, again, I couldn't care less about the result. In fact, part of me feels good about it. Jalen Green went for 38 points and 8 threes. Great. Fantastic. Jalen Green got his best game of the series out of the way in a game the Warriors probably weren't going to win anyway. Fantastic. I actually like that from a Warrior perspective. We're probably going to see a couple of absolute Jalen Green stinkers over the rest of the series here. We're probably going to see another couple of single-digit scoring games from him. So the fact he had a big game in a game the Warriors were probably already going to lose, fantastic. I couldn't care less about that. In fact, I'm very happy about it. So I suppose positives from a Warrior perspective, Steph wasn't great, continued to get held and all the physical contact and whatever else, but that's just going to be an ongoing storyline. We know that. I suppose Quinton Post, Moses Moody, probably the best two or the biggest two positives. I like what QP did, to be fair, hit 4 threes. It was good to see him capitalized on some of his open ones. He missed a few early in the first half, but really came back and gave the Warriors a little bit of life in that second half with a few of his threes. And I think that's a big factor moving forward because Bill Simmons basically said after game 1 that it was a stretch to have Post on the floor and that the Rockets were going to live with whatever 3-point attempts he was taking. I'm not particularly sure about that. Like, I think this performance, what did he go, 4 of 7 or 4 of 8? He went 4 of 8 from 3. Like, I'm not sure the Rockets are just going to be leaving Quinton Post wide open again for the remainder of the series. And if they do, then I think this is a good to see that he's actually going to capitalize on that and he's going to actually be a legitimate threat, which we know he's been through the regular season. So it was nice to see that at least translate to the playoffs. And Moses was a little bit more aggressive in hunting his shot, took 6 3-point attempts, made 3, had 12 points. It's kind of does shine a light on his limitations as an offensive player when the Rockets can just get away with putting Şengün on him and there's no real concern about Moses taking Şengün one-on-one. And that's kind of the issue with him as a legit just catch and shoot guy, is that he's not someone who's going to be able to attack a mismatch. And I suppose that is the biggest limitation with his game. And whether or not he can develop that at all going forward, I don't know. Like, he's still a valuable player. Like, a 3-and-D guys who can shoot 40% from 3-point range and can be a high-level perimeter defender, which I think he's starting to develop into over the second half of the season since he's got the responsibility following Wiggins' exit via that blockbuster trade. I think that's really valuable in itself. Can he start to do more moving forward? He will wait and see. But regardless, the contract the Warriors have him on at 3 years, $37.5 million or whatever, like, that's still a massive steal just for this caliber of player, let alone him developing into anything more. All right, let's get into some of your comments here. Won't go for too long because, again, I don't really care about the game. I care about Jimmy's health and status moving forward. That's really just the biggest thing. Again, the Warriors did what they had to do in winning one of these 2 games. Would have it been nice to take a real hold of the series with a win today? Yeah, but you're not going to do so when Jimmy exits after 8 minutes and when Pods is sick as a dog and giving you nothing. So Logan says game was over once Jimmy got injured. Absolutely. Knox says game was lost 5 minutes into it. Yeah, well, if by 5 minutes you mean 8 minutes once Jimmy got injured. Logan said, nah, they started game 1 slow as well. No Jimmy, the game was lost. No Jimmy equals nothing in these playoffs. No Jimmy equals they lose in round one. Yeah, I mean, this is all, we're not surprised by this stuff, right? Like, this is just, it was a familiar tale of being a one man show, really, once Jimmy went down. And this is why you have a second superstar caliber player for these kind of moments. And once the Warriors lost that second guy, they don't really like, they don't have the luxury of having anyone else to kind of fill that role. They try to throw Kuminga out there, but he's just not it at this point. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. It does make me wonder, forward thinking a little bit into the off season is like, what could you get for Kuminga in a sign and trade, or what moves could the Warriors make to just give themselves a bona fide third guy, right? Who in these moments you could say, okay, well, we've lost Jimmy, but we still have a puncher's chance. Because I don't know, maybe it's a guy like Cam Johnson, and you could say to yourself, well, they're going to double team Steph. They're going to throw so many things at Steph. But you know what? Cam Johnson could hit 7 threes and go for 25 points and win this game even after Jimmy was injured. Something like that. I don't know. This is forward thinking to the offseason on what you could potentially do. Cam Johnson's obviously been a name that's been linked to the Warriors in the past. Not a guy that's necessarily going to, start isolating, scoring, creating for you and doing what Jimmy does. But, he is obviously a guy that is capable of a 20-25 point outing. And the Warriors don't really have that secondary guy if Jimmy's out to supplement Steph. Kuminga was it to a degree before he got injured in January, which was just a really untimely aspect to all of this, unfortunately. Then it says Steph and Dre 11 turnovers. Yeah, got to be so much better. Particularly, I mean, Draymond's just not playing well at all, and I think it's papering over some of his incidents that he's having with the Rockets players, of which there's been multiple. We saw him, Brooks, I think, got a foul at one point where him and Draymond got into it in the first half. He's had stuff with Şengün, obviously, over the 2 games. He really got into it with Van Vliet at the end of the game there. Jalen Green got a flagrant 1 foul assessed to him in the fourth quarter there where he elbowed Dre in the face. How hard it was, I don't know. I think Dre's delayed reaction suggests it was more just grazed him more than anything, but the action that Jalen Green certainly made in terms of the elbow towards the face was, I think, worthy of a flagrant 1 foul regardless, and that's what the referees decided upon. So I don't know, some of Draymond's antics are probably papering over the fact that he's not playing well over these first 2 games, and he's certainly going to have to respond. But some of the Steph stuff, I know they're absolutely like throwing multiple bodies at him, but he's got to recognize that better sometimes. I think there's way too many times to me that he's just dribbling up the floor and he just like dribbles the ball into traffic so carelessly. And then there's like 3 guys around him and they get a hand in either the turnover, or we saw a couple of jump balls in this one where Jalen Green and Steph both had their hands on the ball. Like, Steph's got to recognize that a little bit better and just, just settle down a bit, settle down, chill out. I said it after the game 1 victory, was a bit of an issue there as well. So it's a bit of a problem in terms of Steph's turnovers. Then Nick says we cut the lead to 10 a lot of times and we couldn't capitalize. At least we won the first game. Now I have to settle things at home. I want Buddy off this team. Like, guy, so useless. Yeah, this is what you love about playoff basketball, is that it really comes down to like, how many guys have you got that you really, really trust in this environment? And the Warriors probably don't have enough still. And this is, again, why you might have to go and make another move in the offseason or try and really hit in free agency. Like, I don't know, I'll keep saying his name, DeAnthony Melton. I could see a healthy DeAnthony Melton being in this series and being in this matchup and being a trustworthy piece for you. But aside from that, like, I suppose the Warriors, they're going to trust all their starters, which is fine. I think Moses has done enough and Pods did enough in game 1 to suggest they can be trusted. Obviously, Pods gets a little bit of leeway in this game through, given his illness. But aside from that, Peyton, Post, Healed, Looney, Santos, Kuminga, Spencer, like, I'm not sure you trust in any of those. Like, even GP2, I suppose, and Loon are the most proven of that duo, but they haven't been great necessarily over the first 2 games here. So I know this is why you'd kind of like a genuine 6th guy, because who is the Warriors 6th man now? Who is it? Now, in an ideal world, it would be Kuminga, but we know it's not him. Is it Peyton? Is it Post? It can't be Buddy Hield, surely. Santos had 4 fouls in the first half today, and the one where Kaminga actually did really well to save the ball and throw it back to him, and then Gee just threw it straight to Şengün. Not sure what he was doing, and then he fouled Şengün. Awful, awful players. The Warriors were battling, obviously, pushing uphill to get back into it, and you just couldn't have plays like that. So, I don't know. This is, I suppose, why moving into the offseason, you'd say, okay, we need another guy, right? We can get away with it during the regular season maybe and be a playoff team, but if you want to be a bona fide championship contender, like you need to try and find a bona fide third guy offensively. If Pods could be like your fourth and Moody your fifth, that'd probably be ideal. And then like Draymond's just there, obviously being, what he does defensively. Who is it? Is it Cam Johnson, someone like that? That's probably an area the Warriors need to try and look at in the offseason. Thai basketball fan says, thought they might lose this game. Don't think this game might lose them. Didn't think this game might lose them the series. It might lose them the series based on Jimmy. Yeah. We'll wait and see. Thendek says, to be fair, I think we'll be fine. We lost by 20 and Jimmy and Pods didn't even score. That's like 35 points missing for us. I'm not, I really don't care about the result. I just, sometimes you look at these and you look at it at a 2-game block, right? And the 2-game block was these first 2 games in Houston, and you just had to win one of those, and you did. So tick, it's a tick for the Warriors through the first 2 games. Now you got to go home, and the next 2-game block is win both games at home and go up 3-1. That's a big ask, right? But that's what they're going to have to try and do. And hopefully Jimmy isn't too bad and can play ideally in both of those games, obviously. Brody says refs need to... Alrighty, the mic just did what the mic likes to do and disconnect for some reason, so I apologize for that. We should be back on. Sorry, getting back into your comments. Yeah, so Brody said refs need to step in. This series is turning into WWE. I'm amazed that no one's been ejected in the first 2 games. It's rather wild. Thai basketball fan says the game was out of control from the beginning. Brody says the refs are too secure in their jobs. Fines and suspensions need to be implemented. These NBA refs have nothing to lose. They're refing the highest league in the world. Yeah, I don't know. This is just like, we saw what happened during the regular season between these 2 teams. We saw what happened even going back to last season between these 2 teams. Like, it's a legit rivalry. Now, I suppose if the Warriors were to go on and win this series, you'd say there's actually no rivalry because one team beats up on the other. But the Rockets are a young team. It's kind of like that Memphis series from a couple of years ago, which ironically Dylan Brooks was part of, where it's just like a young team, upstart team who want to make their name coming up against a veteran team who have been there, done it before. And you kind of get a massive clash, right, of 2 different teams who are at different points, and yeah, it's basically being stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. So I don't know what the league's certainly going to be saying stuff to the refs, not only in this series but across other series as well, in regards to the physicality and stuff like that. And I actually think they've done a pretty good job in managing certain situations, particularly with Draymond and the Van Vliet stuff, late in the fourth quarter of this game. Like, I don't know if I can be really too complain. I don't think I can complain too much about the refereeing so far. I think it's just these 2 teams and the history that they now have together over the past 12, 18 months. Logan says they always start slow. It's turning into a problem. Brody says the refs at the college level are good because they are working towards the NBA and have to be great to get there. I don't know. The officiating to me, like, I don't think it's had a difference making aspect to either of these first 2 games. Like, the Warriors, I think, won the first game off their own merit, and the Rockets won this game off their own merit. Simple as that. Or maybe not off their own merit, but Jimmy Butler's injury, obviously a big factor in that. A Thai basketball fan says the problem was no Jimmy and no Pods, especially when Steph sat. Empire says, I think we would have won if Jimmy hadn't got injured, so I'm not worried, and I am so tired of seeing Buddy on the floor. Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried aside from Jimmy's health. Then Nick says, what did you think of JK? Like, I get why Kerr benched him. Pat Spencer did more than him. Yeah, as Kevin O'Connor, I think, tweeted out, is that Jonathan Kuminga put on a great display of showing why Steve benched him. So, yeah, it wasn't a great performance from him, but again, it's not surprising to me. Like, you have a young guy who's looking to make his money, and you bench him for 3 straight games in the final regular season game, playing tournament game, and then game 1 of the playoffs. It's pretty hard to bring him back from that point, and obviously you needed to bring him back based on the fact Jimmy went out. And if Jimmy is out in game 3, like, you're still going to need Kuminga. I don't know if he's good enough to be able to level up and get to a point where he can be really impactful in game 3 now that he's probably going to go into it knowing he's going to be a role. I think it's pretty hard for him in a game like this where he would have gone into the game thinking, well, I'm not going to play. Now, it's easy to say, oh, well, you should be expecting to play, even if you've seen 3 straight DMPs. But I don't know. I don't really blame him too much for, potentially a lack of intensity out there a little bit. Like, again, asking him to come in straight into a playoff game after 3 straight DMPs at this point of his career at 22 years old, it's pretty difficult. Thai basketball fan says, would have had a great shot at it. I was worried they'd go down big immediately, but they were fine until the injury. Yeah, they're only down like 7 or 8 when Jimmy got injured. So, yeah, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened had Jimmy not gone down. Royd says, Thompson's undercut looked intentional to me. Look, make up your own mind on it. I don't want to comment on it too much because it is what it is. Like, you can't change it. I don't know. We'll wait and see. Matt says the game was in reach for majority of it without Jimmy, and I would like to believe Rockets won't have as good of a shooting night. What did they shoot in the end? The Warriors were 39.5% from 3, but only 41.3% from the floor. So everything inside the arc wasn't great. The Rockets shot 45.3%, 37.5% from 3. As I said before, Jalen Green getting 8 threes and 38 points out of the way. I feel good about that. I feel like losing this game and Jalen Green having a stinker would have been, because a big Jalen Green game or 2 is coming, but he's also going to have a couple of games where he's really bad. So again, getting this one out of the way in a game they probably would have lost anyway, I think is a good thing. Thai basketball fans says, I don't know about intention, but it definitely looked bad, especially with him grabbing Jimmy's leg. Remember when before Jimmy Steph said the team wasn't built to come back? I didn't have much hope. Yeah, neither did I. You go down 20 in the second quarter, you're playing Pat Spencer, Kuminga, after the situation he's been through. You just lack real offensive options outside Steph. I actually, I couldn't fault the effort. The fact it was still 11 with 7 minutes to go, and you thought, they're just one huge run away. If that 9-0 run they went on early in the fourth quarter, where Post hit like 2 or 3 threes in a row, if they just extended that out and somehow brought it back to like 5 or 6, that's when you could have really put some pressure on, and we could have seen what Houston potentially had in a real pressure environment. And that's kind of what I said before the series is like, can you get deep into fourth quarters, into clutch situations to see if the young Rockets can really stand up? And unfortunately, the Warriors couldn't quite push them enough to get into that situation in this game. They got it down to 11, then Houston went on like an 8-0 run, and that was that. So, yeah. Thai basketball fan says, if there's a team to do something flagrant intentionally, this is definitely the one. My biggest issue with this is I don't think it's just the players. Like, the players is one thing, but I actually don't think Udoka gives a crap. I think he's more than happy for his team. Like, he wants his team to be really, really, really physical. And even if they kind of push the boundaries of that, I'm not sure he cares. And so that's the kind of thing that worries me, because I think some coaches would be like, all right, guys, let's be physical, but let's rein it in a little bit and make sure it's all above board. Do I think Udoka's telling his team that? No, I think he's going the opposite way. He's like, no, you grab Steph Curry, you knock around Steph as much as you can. If you can get away with it, let's absolutely do it. Right. I'm not sure every coach is necessarily like that. Empire says Post was making the Rockets pay for leaving him open in the second half. Probably the biggest positive for me out of the game was him just starting to knock down some threes and saying to the Rockets, well, if you're going to leave me wide open, I'm going to start making some of these, and that could be a big factor in the series moving forward. Andrew the Goat says Warriors in 5. Let's hope so. The rookies only won this game because they played dirty. Robbie says JK needs to be traded to a rebuilding team where he can develop his IQ more. It would be good for him and the Warriors who can get another scoring player. Wait and see. Plenty of time to. I mean, I tend to agree at this point. Be interesting to see. We'll have more of a chat about it, obviously, as the off season plays out here and what potentially the Warriors could get. Empire says, I wonder what was the reason for Jalen Green hitting Draymond in the face. Yeah, weird. Thai basketball fan said Jalen Green saying he got going on defense was definitely something. Holding Steph got him going, and then no Jimmy and no Pods on defense. And I'm supposed to be impressed by his game. Hopefully, it really is his one good game. Yeah, like I don't trust him. If I was a Rockets fan, like I just don't trust the guy. He had 7 points in game 1 and 38 in game 2. What's he going to do in game 3? Who knows? Like he could go for 5 points on 2 of 15 shooting, or he could have 38 on 15 of 20 shooting. Like I don't know. And that therefore is why, and it's why, from looking at it from a Warrior fan's perspective, sure, but like I was optimistic going into this series because like I just trust Steph and Jimmy more than I do Jalen Green and Apper and Şengün. Şengün, I think he's more consistent. That's why he's an all-star this season, right? Jalen Green at his best is an all-star level talent. We just like the gap between his best and his worst is way too great. And across a playoff series, I think that probably gets found out. Now, whether Jimmy can come back or not and be his true self, that's going to be obviously a big factor in whether the Warriors can win this series or not. So we'll wait and see. Thai basketball fan says Melton healthy would be awesome, but relying on him again wouldn't be wise. He should be a bonus, not the plan. Agree with that. You just bring him in on a minimum and say, okay, well, he's on a minimum contract. We can bring him along slowly. He can be on a minutes restriction. He doesn't need to play a huge role necessarily, particularly early in the season. But if we can get him fully healthy for the playoffs, it's like a kind of Otto Porter and Otto Porter was huge Otto Porter was potentially bigger in the regular season than he was in the playoffs for the Warriors, but that's the kind of signing it is. Where the Warriors probably signed OPJ in 2021 off season and probably thinking, okay, well, he's got injury concerns, but for a minimum, it's worth a flyer, and it absolutely yielded huge results for them. FTW Clan says we better pray Jimmy is good for game 3 because I don't think we're winning a single game without him. Depends if I'm assuming Pods is going to be right to go. Actually, you know what? I think I don't know. There's just something about Houston that I don't love. And this is going to bite me in the backside. And Houston probably going to win this series now that I've said this. But like, I had no expectations in the second half of this game. But I also thought to myself, it wouldn't shock me if the Warriors came back and won this game. Now, they didn't. They lost by 15. But would it shock me if they won game 3 without Jimmy Butler? No. Like, I just don't think Houston are that good. And I just don't trust them wholeheartedly, particularly, when Jalen Green is their leading scorer. That's just what I think. FTW Clan says, but hopefully our role players play better in the Bay and theirs play worse. Thai basketball fans says, I want Jimmy to play game 3, but I also don't want him to because I don't see how he could be truly good to go after that. I don't know. If you're going to say what's his status for game 3, I would say doubtful right now, but we'll know more in the next 24 hours. FTW Clan says Jalen Green won't come close to 30 again this series. Fingers crossed. Thai basketball fan, what did you think about the still photo they showed on the broadcast to prove Jalen Green was fouled on that challenge? Never seen that before, and images are never conclusive. Very strange. Yeah, that was a weird one with Gee. Obviously, it was called out of bounds on Jalen Green, which clearly was, but then Udoka challenged it to see if there was a foul prior to that, which they said there was on Gee Santos. I don't think I had an issue with it. I think it probably was a foul, but yeah, the fact they use a still photo on it, again, I'm with you. Like, I'm not sure still photos are the greatest evidence necessarily to dictate something like that. So strange, yes. Was it the right decision? Probably. But yeah, I do agree. It was a bit weird. Bull don't lie. Oh, damn. I thought this was Golden State with mates. Jokes. Oh, man. Sorry. Golden State with Matas. Matas Buzelis. Bulls season is well and truly over. We're Golden State with mates here. That's hilarious. FTW Clan says basketball fan, it was so annoying seeing him getting so hyped about forcing jump ball on Curry when he was literally needed a double triple team to do a guard him 1v1 and see what happens. Yep, agree with that. In regards to Jalen Green's defense, Thai basketball fans says, yeah, they were hyped for everything, even just scoring right after Jimmy left with 0 of the big 3 on the floor. That lineup started the second quarter that Steve went to with Pat Spencer, Buddy Hield, Kaminga, Draymond, and Post. I was like, yeah, we might be cooked here. this might be done and dusted. Thai basketball fans says the Jimmy recovery will determine the chance of shutting them up. The problem is, and I know the Warriors have been on the right end of injury issues in the playoffs, but man, if Jimmy's actually no good, let's say worst case scenario has a fracture out for the series and probably the playoffs, and let's say he's out for the series and the Rockets go on to win, the amount of chirp we're going to see from the Rockets players and Rockets fans about them beating a Jimmy Butler-less Warriors team is going to be incredibly painful. It's going to be really painful because the obvious remark to that from a Warrior perspective is we didn't have Jimmy Butler. You guys wouldn't have won if we had Jimmy Butler. That's what it's going to be, and it's going to be really painful. But there's a long way to go. I'm still very optimistic the Warriors win this series. Thai basketball fans says every time the Warriors lost, they were injured, though. Everyone only wants to talk about it when they win. Injuries are just always such a factor in the playoffs, and the Warriors have benefited from it a number of times, and I'd say they also lost a championship out of it. I think 2019, KD's not injured, Clay's not injured. I think the Warriors win that series over the Raptors fairly comfortably. So it swings and roundabouts, right? There's injuries benefit you sometimes, and other times they hurt you. I think it's pretty similar for most teams. And I'm not here, crying as a Warrior fan saying that we haven't benefited from injuries to other teams in the past. We certainly have, right? And this is maybe an instance where we're on the wrong side of it. Fingers crossed that's not the case. And we'll know more in the next 24 hours. I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Been going for over 32 minutes. Thanks to Tired Basketball Fan, FTW Clan, everyone else in the chat for giving me your thoughts. I know for those of you in America, it's quite late on a Wednesday night now. Again, 3:30 in the afternoon for me in Australia. So I'll go sit down on the couch, do a bit of writing in preparation for tomorrow for bluemanhoop.com, so you can check out my work there. When's the next game? Saturday US time, so Sunday for me, game 3 back in the Bay. I'll certainly be back, obviously, for a post-game live after that one. Potentially another podcast episode. In the meantime, we'll wait and see how we go. Anzac Day for us in Australia tomorrow. So if you are Australian, have a good Anzac Day. Obviously, a big matchup between Collingwood and Essendon, which is probably outside the I think there's no probably about it. Outside the grand final, or the Super Bowl that you guys in America would call it. It's the biggest game in the AFL, I think, for the season, Anzac Day. It's such a special occasion. I've been lucky enough to go once with my late old man. In what year did we go? 2017 we went. Unfortunately, Collingwood lost, but I tell you what, when the last post is being played before the game and you've got 90,000 people there standing in silence, it's one of those moments that really raise your hairs on the back of your back and give you goosebumps. It's really special, so I'm looking forward to sitting down on the couch, a couple of beers, watch the game with a couple of mates tomorrow. Hopefully a better result than what we saw with the Warriors today. Collingwood are pretty heavy favourites to beat Essendon tomorrow, so we should get a better result, fingers crossed. And then hopefully the Warriors can bounce back in game 3 on Sunday for me, Australian time, against Saturday for you guys in America. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POC252. That's POK252 on X/Twitter. Again, thanks to everyone for your support. If you've commented here or if you're watching on replay or listening via your podcast feed, I'll be back on Saturday for another post-game live and potentially another podcast episode in the meantime. Be on the lookout for that. Thanks, guys.